Hello and welcome to Unclogged, the Zoom Drain podcast. Today I'm joined by Ron Dermady, Chief Operating Officer at Hunter Crown, and Emily Onheiser, Senior Search Consultant. Hunter Crown is a boutique executive search firm that specializes in the water, wastewater, and industrial infrastructure industries. Their team partners with organizations ranging from privately held businesses to private equity-backed and publicly traded companies, helping them identify, attract, and retain the talent needed to build and maintain some of our country's most critical infrastructure. Ron brings more than 25 years of experience in recruiting, talent development, and operational leadership. Throughout his career, he's helped organizations scale training programs, embrace new technologies, and build high-performing teams that deliver long-term results. Emily works directly with both clients and candidates, helping connect top talent with opportunities across the water and wastewater industry. Her relationship-first approach and her passion for recruiting have made her a trusted advisor to companies looking to grow and to professionals who are looking to take the next step in their careers. In this episode, we dive into today's hiring landscape, why recruiting has become so much more relationship-driven than ever, how AI is changing executive search, and what home service business owners can do to attract, hire, and retain great people in an increasingly competitive market. Now, let's get flowing. Ron, Emily, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm personally very excited about this conversation, and it's going to feel like I say this about every conversation that I have when I talk to people who work for companies or work in fields that I'm passionate about. But for those of you watching who don't know my personal background or you don't know Ron's background, Ron and I met 10 years ago, which is hard to believe. When I worked at MRI Network, I started my franchising career in the executive recruitment space with MRI Network. And Ron was one of my first friends in the space and was a great mentor to me and a great partner. And I know we had a common goal to collaborate more when we had the marketing teams and the training teams to have us working side by side, not in the silos. And I think a lot of the content our audience today sees on social media that comes from Zoom Drain, where I'm talking about branding and content, that was content that you and I had kind of perfected together over the years. And we've spent many hours together building curriculum and helping recruiters build their personal brands. And now I'm honored to take those lessons learned. And I've been teaching people who work in the home services world. And when I saw that you had made a career move, Ron, and you landed with a search firm that specializes in the water and wastewater industries, it was a no-brainer that we had to reconnect because our worlds have collided once again. So couldn't be more excited to sit down, reconnect with you and Emily. Really looking forward to leaning into this, learning more about what you're seeing as an expert in the recruiting world. And I just want to start with that. So everybody knows Ron and I go way back. So you may hear some Cowboys jokes, some Go Birds references mixed in here. If you're not a sports fan, we'll catch you up at a later time. Go Birds. But Emily, I want to start with you. Let's dig right into it. The state of hiring today. I want to kind of talk about broadly the current hiring landscape, why recruiting has become more challenging, if you feel it has, what candidates are looking for today, especially when we think about skilled tradesmen in the water and wastewater industries. I think there's probably some commonalities across the board. So what have you seen? What's the biggest shift in the last 5 years or so that you're seeing in the field?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having us. Thanks for having me here. Yeah, to jump right in, I would say the past 5 years, if we hone in specifically on those 5 years, obviously there was a pandemic 5, 6 years ago. So a lot has changed as far as candidates aren't as desperate as they maybe once were. So companies have to show up for the the candidates just as much as you want the candidates to show up for you.
What does that mean? Like when you say the company needs to show up, is that during the hiring process, or do you mean throughout kind of the life of the relationship?
Yeah, definitely. Well, the life of the relationship, absolutely. That's getting into retention, but I would say in the early stages too of the interview process, candidates are they are analyzing the companies before they sit down for the formal interview. So they're checking out the website, they're looking at current employees there. All of those things matter to a potential new candidate.
And either of you can jump in. Follow up question. I think most people assume that when you get to maybe a manager level or more executive position, candidates are more likely to do their research and really dig into the employer. What are you seeing? So for our franchise owners, of course, they're hiring service managers and they are hiring, some marketing support, but really where they're focused is bringing on top talent in the field. We're looking at expert drain and sewer technicians, guys who learn how to use the equipment, learn how to sell by I shouldn't even say sell, but learn how to clearly communicate options to our customers. But I think a lot of people look at them as kind of, these are just blue collar guys. They're not doing, their research. They're not digging into this. They need a job. We have a job. Handshake, you're hired. What are you seeing as far as trends and what candidates are looking for when you think about the skilled tradesman?
I would say for skilled trades, opportunity for growth is a huge one. I've seen a lot of candidates who enjoy the job, love the people that they work with, but they feel pigeonholed where they are in the company, and that's what has them looking to maybe leave. And maybe you're asking about upfront. Maybe I jumped ahead a little bit there, but upfront, what candidates are looking for during the interview process, they're noticing, especially with skilled trades, again, they pull up into the parking lot, they're noticing the trucks, they're noticing the equipment, the technology. Obviously, it's ever evolving. So those things matter probably more than ever.
Patrick, I'll add something there. The research side has always been there to some extent. People can go to websites, you can go to LinkedIn, you can check out blogs. But what we are seeing more and more today is that the world is smaller than it used to be 5 minutes ago. I think we can all agree upon that. You're seeing candidates who will reach out and talk to somebody else now before they apply for the job. Hey, what do you know about this company? What do you know about that manager? Can you connect me? The Kevin Bacon, 6 points of separation, who I'm sure there's a lot of people watching this have no idea what I'm talking about right there. But it's important that companies realize that candidates, I'm going to go back to what you said, Patrick. I have a job, you need a job. Let's do a handshake and move on. That does not happen anymore. It just doesn't. There's too many little things that are happening in between where the candidate is evaluating the client to a much higher level than ever before, regardless of the type of job that it is.
It's very timely that you mentioned that because I just talked to a franchise owner who made a new hire. And it's been a key hire for him, really helping him build momentum. He had ran into some hiring issues, some team issues, and he almost hired a guy. And one of his existing employees is like, hey, he's like, I worked with him before. I don't think he's going to be a great fit. He said, but I know another guy from that company who didn't apply, but I know he's interested. And these two already got along. They already knew that, they work well together. And he brought the other guy on board, right? Yeah. So you're right. There is a community out there, and these guys are talking to each other before they make any moves. And they're looking at the website. They're looking at social media. It's not just about the work that you do, but they want to see, how do you recognize your current staff? What do they look happy? What do they have to say about the employer? And Ron, you and I have talked for years about hiring brands, and it's not just about attracting, but it's about retaining. Maybe a little bit of a curveball, but like, what are some things that you have learned over the years, or maybe that you even tell the clients that you work with who are looking to attract and retain talent? Like, what are some things they should be doing, especially in our field, to make these guys feel good about making the decision to join the team and once they're on, like from a marketing standpoint, a hiring brand?
Yeah, one thing that I love to do here is hand them back their own job description, because every company has a job description of what they're looking for. So, Patrick, you're hiring, you want a widget maker, you give me, the recruiter, the job description for a widget maker. I'm going to turn it around and hand it back to you, and I'm going to say, will you apply for your own job? Most of the time, you won't. And most of the time, you won't apply for a variety of reasons. One, it doesn't tell the story, or two, it's too lengthy, or it's an arduous process. We're way past those days where you upload a resume and then you have to go to the next place on the website and type your name in 17 times. No, if I give you my resume, we're done. Like, you got everything. Figure it out. Let your technology figure it out. So that little question, would you apply to your own job, I think is huge.
You mentioned the job description doesn't tell the story. I'm a branding guy. I'm a storyteller. What does that mean when, as a recruiter, and you're talking about the story? What kind of story are you talking about that the job description should tell?
I think the biggest thing the job description misses, it hits on qualifications you want, hard skills that the company's looking for, but really like the day to day of the role. I think if you're able to encapsulate that in the job description, it's so helpful for candidates. So many candidates have said to me, I got the job description, but it seems pretty generic. They're not feeling what they'll actually be doing out there every day. And I think that's what's really helpful, of course, once the interview takes place. Then you can go into what the day to day looks like. And that's where it's so important for hiring managers to be transparent there, so that a candidate can envision themselves in the job, what they're really going to be doing. So maybe that's that's kind of like a high level overview of what a job description could be missing. It might not be something so clear cut, but I think some of the nitty gritty things that set this role apart from others is what job descriptions are often lacking.
Job descriptions are often written by human resources or the legal department, neither of which do the job that they've written the job description for. So if you're the hiring authority, if you are the person that's in the role or managing the people in the role, don't just take the job from HR, or heck, you and I have been here before, Patrick, or from your franchisor and say, here's the job description. That is the bullet points. That's the bare minimum. But what those things are going to miss is, why would somebody want to do this job? Not what is the job, but why would somebody want to do this? And that's where that needs to get added in. And one thing I love to tell our clients to do, ask the person who's currently doing the job to write a paragraph or give 5 bullet points about what they do, what they believe the job is, because that's going to tell a totally different story than what HR or legal put together about what the responsibilities are of the job.
And if you don't have an accurate job description, but going back to the storytelling where you're really providing a clear example of what a day looks like in the role, you may not get the person to even apply. But let's assume that the person just wants a job and they move forward and they're hired. What are some of the ramifications of the job description being vague or not being so specific, explaining what an average day looks like for this position? Because I'm sure you get a phone call less than 30 days later, if that's the case, as the recruiter who places the individual. What could happen there?
That's the worst call to get. But yeah, the person doesn't want to stick around. I will say, typically candidates are going to pick up on this quickly. If you're being vague, if you're not being genuine in the interview, candidates will know. If it gets to that point where they're hired on and they don't feel like the job was explained to them thoroughly, stepping away obviously affects reputation of the company, expensive for the company. It's you're starting back over, essentially. Yeah.
What are some of the universal hiring challenges that you see within home services and industrial businesses today? What are some of the common themes impacting hiring?
I would say with skilled trades, um, there is not as many folks in the younger generation who are diving into this industry. And the flip side of that is there is a big group of people who will be retiring in the next decade. So there is a big gap there. I think that that's a big growth opportunity for the right folks to come on board. But I think for skilled trades, it's something that there's just doesn't seem to be as many folks out there. So getting that younger generation interested in these sorts of roles is critical. These are critical positions. They're not going anywhere. Rod, did you have anything to add to that?
Yes and no. I'm gonna continue with the critical. We work in the water and the wastewater industry, a critical industry, a life changing industry. It's unique throughout my entire recruiting career. This may be one of the first times that I've truly worked in a critical arena. Um, when you're in a critical arena, you cannot be reactive to everything that you do. And I think to your question, Patrick, one of the big challenges is how people have always recruited in the skilled trade. They wait until there's a need and then they go try and find. And they do that because it has always been, for the most part, fairly simple. Yeah, goes back to what we said just a little while ago. I have a need, you need a job, handshake, and we're good. That's how it always was done. Unfortunately, that dynamic has changed a little bit, and we need to be more proactive. The people that are hiring need to be more proactive. If you think about it, especially within the Zoom Drain franchise, I don't know exactly how many job titles are within your franchise locations, but I'm guessing it's only a handful. There's probably 3, 4, 5 different job titles that you hire for. Those should be recruited on all the time. Maybe not daily, maybe not even weekly, depending upon how big the franchise is, but definitely on a monthly basis, there needs to be time set aside for proactive recruiting efforts. Does that mean that you're going to hire every single week or every single month? No, it doesn't. But you need to know where those people are and start building those relationships today. And to me, that's the biggest shift that has to happen.
What does that really look like? I know you just said it doesn't mean you have to hire them today. How do I, as an employer, I own a small business. Maybe right now I have 1 or 2 technicians on my team. I know that my business is going to grow, or at any point, one of my technicians could leave me for a variety of reasons. You want to have that bench of talent, but maybe you're not in a position to bring on an apprentice or bring on that third hire just yet. How does a future or potential employer nurture relationships with candidates that they're not necessarily ready to bring on board today?
Great question. To me, this is all about relationship building, which is what recruiting is. And there are recruiters that are transactional, and all they care about is the placement, the fee, the thing that's going to happen today. Then there are recruiters that are in it for the long-term relationship. And with those, there's tons of transparency. There is lots of honesty. Talking to a candidate, if you're a Zoom Drain franchise owner, talking to candidates once a week or once a month and saying, I don't have something today, but here's the typical role that I hire for, and I'd like to build that relationship with you so that if there's interest on your side, there's interest on my side, when the time is right, we could move pretty quickly. We do this for a lot of our clients on the executive recruiting side. We find out what is that profile, what do they ultimately tend to hire for, and then we keep them abreast of those types of candidates that are available. Emily, anything to add to that?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think thinking of recruiting as more of a business function rather than something that you're doing last minute is so critical. Staying in touch with people, I think for trade folks, staying in touch with trade schools, who's coming out, who are teachers saying are, top of their class, and someone who maybe isn't a fit right now could be a fit in a few years. Just
Sure.
keeping the relationship building going. So yeah, similar to what Ron said there.
And I think the hiring brand that we talked about earlier ties into that. Like when I talk to our franchise owners about their social media presence, it's like, listen, we want to build trust. We want to demonstrate that we know drain and sewer cleaning inside and out. We want to show that you are a active local part of the community that you serve. That's going to help build trust. But there should always be a channel humming that talks about career opportunities and highlights the people who are already on your team, that makes them feel good and makes people from the outside looking in feel good about you as an employer, and that it's a place that maybe they wouldn't want to work, but maybe they would recommend it to their neighbor's son or their nephew or their own son, right? So that's something that's always has to be humming. Even if you feel like, hey, I'm well staffed today, you have to think about tomorrow. And I love the personal touch about, because we always talk about business development and relationship building from a B2B standpoint, but I love that advice for our franchise owners, that you have to look at your hiring almost as a business development or relationship development activity that doesn't just get turned on when there's an immediate need.
So, Patrick, you and I were taught a long, long time ago by a very wise gentleman, Mr. Joe Mullings, taught us to stand in plain sight and be visible when they need you. That was something that you and I were taught a very, very long time ago, and we worked it into everything that you and I did together. I employ that today. We don't hire a lot of internal recruiters here at Hunter Crown. We've got an amazing team, but I do recruiting on a weekly basis for internal talent. And part of that is my social media presence. I have one post every single week that goes on to social media, LinkedIn and Twitter, that is specifically about recruiting. That's it. And it's meant to be there standing in plain sight when the time is right. So I would encourage your Zoom Drain owners to do the same sort of thing. Stand where they are, wave your hand, hi, we're here. And when the time is right, you will have built enough of those relationships that you'll be able to move quickly.
For sure. Couldn't agree more, Ron. I want to circle back. Emily, you mentioned earlier there's a shortage of skilled tradesmen entering the workforce. And obviously, you have a certain population entering retirement, and there's a
Mm-hmm.
gap. What does that do to the power? Is there a shift in who holds all the cards now when it comes to hiring and who can make the demands, right? There's supply and demand when it comes to hiring, right? And a lot of times if there's a job shortage, people are less likely to make a move. The employer has a little bit more weight to throw around in benefits and salary, and they can be more selective on who they choose. In this case, it sounds like the market may be benefiting those skilled tradesmen who are just entering the workforce. What does that look like, and what are your projections as we move forward for, the everyday blue collar worker entering the workforce?
Yeah, I think what really had me thinking about this was a statistic I heard within the water industry that 30 to 50% of the current water folks will be of retirement age in the next decade. So it really had me, that's half of the workforce. So what does that mean? And does it shift the power? I think it does shift the power a little bit. But, I think showing the next generation what these positions look like, emphasizing that they're careers, they're not jobs. These roles have been tried and true. They're shown that they're not going anywhere.
How do you project the industry, in 5 years from now? Like the fact that more are exiting and there's a shortage of people to backfill those roles. Like what does that do overall to the landscape?
What it does is it allows the top level candidates to have their pick of the litter. And that's important to realize as you're out recruiting, especially if you've recruited the way that most people always did for numerous years. If you don't make that shift now, 5 years from now, when that, we call it the silver tsunami in the water and wastewater industry, when that silver tsunami hits,
Yeah.
the candidate that you have your eye on has their eye on six other companies that are branded better, that have a better culture, that are communicating not only with their internal team but their external vendors better, that are just, it's the type of place that you can see from the outside that you want to be part of. We all know those types of companies. We can all see them clear as day when you walk past those companies. And if you're waiting to make the change 5 years from now, when that supply and demand totally does shift, you're going to be out of luck. It's going to be, you will end up with the scraps, unfortunately.
There's so many connections in all these conversations that I have. My last podcast, we talked to one of the pioneers in the branding space, Dan Antonelli from Kick Charge Creative, and we talked about the power of a brand, a strong brand, professional, clean, and not just the logo, but the truck wraps, the uniforms, all of the spokes on the wheel, and how that gives organizations, home service brands like our own, two advantages. One, it gives you the opportunity to charge more just because of the impact the brand has and the expectation that it sets with its customers, compared to a guy who shows up and his shirt's not tucked in and his pants are falling down, his truck's beat up, it's a white van with a magnet slapped on it. Right there, like, who has more power in that conversation? Who has a better likelihood of closing a bigger deal? And it's what I'm hearing from you. It's as the power shifts back to the employee, to the skilled tradesman, they have their pick of the litter. What's going to make you stand out? What's going to make you their first choice? You got to look at it like sports, like they're free agents. They're going to go to the most attractive destination, and there are a lot of factors that go into that. The other piece with the branding too is it helps with hiring and retention. Right? Use those two examples. You have Zoom Drain with our service trucks, are state of the art. The wraps on them are beautiful. We have uniforms. We have a clean website. I mean, all of the things that come with the brand. Or you can go work for Joe Schmo, who doesn't have a website. His nephew made the logo 20 years ago in Microsoft Paint. He's got a couple magnets slapped on his truck. And if you're a top talent, which one are you going to pick? Which one do you think you have more opportunity with? So that's what the branding and hiring piece, they go hand in hand. That's what all my worlds are colliding during this conversation.
And Patrick, I want to point out one quick aspect to that. You never mentioned compensation once, because that's not the most important part. And it will become further and further away from being the most important part. And I can also promise people that if you think that you will change decades worth of what your organization has been doing with the magnets on the truck by offering higher compensation, that will last you for a nanosecond. Yes, you will get the candidate, but they will leave you 5 minutes later for 50 cents more on the hour. And that will happen in every industry across the board. So money, compensation is never going to be that tipping factor permanently. Could it be in the moment? Yes, it absolutely could be, but it never will be permanently. So all of the other culture is what's so important. And Emily sees this every single day with the clients that she's working with, and the ones that have the amazing culture, it's pretty easy to recruit for, right, Emily?
Absolutely. Yeah. And even to that point of marketing, and these top candidates are going to go to the companies where, they see a better future ahead. And Patrick, you said it, there's a lot of things that come into play. And again, back to that relationship building piece, because when a candidate is on the job market and they've been in communication with a company that they're seeing value in, they're going to want to go there rather than go to the company that they're hiring because someone decided to retire. They're going to want to go somewhere where there's more value. They feel the value.
So we're covering so much ground. I want to dial this in for franchise owners, specifically Zoom Drain, but there are a lot of others out there watching this who would fit the mold. Small business owners, they entered franchising for a proven model for support. A lot of them don't have experience hiring, managing, and firing, right? What is one mistake? You already mentioned people wait until it's too late. Um, I won't even say mistake. What's one piece of advice that you would give a first time business owner who's never hired employees before?
First, the beauty of the franchise network, any franchise network, is you have a whole slew of people that have already stepped in every pothole that's out there. Talk to them first. That may not be what you were looking for. You're probably looking for one thing, and I'll give you one thing. But I worked in franchise for a long, long time, and if you have that network, use it. Learn from the people that went before you. Even today, Hunter Crown is not part of a franchise network, but I still make sure that I network every single day with other people in the executive recruiting space so that I can learn what they're experiencing. And those sort of things are invaluable to you. So if you're a Zoom Day franchise owner and you're in Boston, Massachusetts, go call somebody in San Diego and find out what they know and get to know them. It will take you 100-fold past where you are today. If I were to give one piece of advice, though, for what they should do as they get into first-time franchise owner, getting into the hiring process, it will be to have a defined set of expectations, not only for the role, but for the hiring process. Don't wing it. Know that you're going to do 1, 2, 3 interviews. Know that you're going to do a phone screen. Know that you're going to do a ride along. Know that you're, whatever it might be, know that beforehand and stick to it. Don't change it midstream. Know that you put it together for a reason and then judge each person accordingly. Have some sort of ranking system so that after you've evaluated 3, 5, 7 people, you now have scores on all of them and you can look back and say, okay, I'm going to narrow it down to the top 2 or 3 that I know can do the job. And now it becomes more of the cultural fit, because you've scored everything. You know who your top candidates are. And in our business, we call them the most placeable candidates. And once you have those people, it's easy to decide.
For any franchise owner watching this conversation or listening to it, I think that alone made it worth it. Not that everything else hasn't been great, but yeah, it's about being organized, having a process. I just wrote something down. You mentioned ride-alongs.
Yeah.
And before we even bring anybody onto our corporate team at Zoom Drain Franchise, we have them go for a ride along with our Philadelphia operation. We may be hiring for a marketing role, and no, you're not going to be out in a truck. You're not going to be unclogging drains and sewers, but we want you to understand the business that you're supporting, what you're part of, and the people that we're really marketing on behalf of, what they go through day to day. And you're in kind of a unique situation as a third party, right? As recruiters that the hiring organizations bring on board. How often, what percentage of organizations that you work with who have field employees that you're recruiting for make that a mandatory piece of the hiring process?
It's pretty rare that that's a major part of the interview process, but I see that as so invaluable. I think you could gauge a lot from the person, whether they're, that's going to be their day-to-day job or not, by taking them along to some of those calls. I kind of wish that was a little more part of the process, and especially with some of these folks who do have to travel, they do have crazy hours. I think giving them a snapshot of what it could look like would really be so telling during the interview process for both sides.
It's telling for both sides. You're right. Even as we bring on new franchise owners into the system, when they come in for discovery day or confirmation day here at HQ, the day prior, they ride along with the technician. Like, this is what you're signing up for. And you may not be an owner who's going out in a truck, although there may be emergency situations, which that's what the job requires. It's your business. But we want you to get out there and listen. These are the types of people you're going to be employing. So like, get to know the technician, ask him questions, ask him about his day, his day to day, the culture, his expectations. It's so telling. And then we find out a lot by how they responded to the ride along. Because it's a long day. It's hard work. Um, it says a lot about the individual, and are they going to live out our core values as an organization? It doesn't matter if they're going to be doing that role every day. It's telling. So interesting that more organizations haven't implemented that. It's a marriage, right? You're hiring somebody. You don't just see somebody and propose. There has to be some kind of dating period, and to leave that just to interviews is kind of interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and Patrick, I would say for your franchise owners, they experience that ride along, like you said, during their discovery day before they sign to buy the franchise. I would remind them of that as they get ready to hire, and that should be one of those steps that's part of their hiring process. I'll give you an example that's not completely related, but is somewhat similar. We have an onboarding training program here at Hunter Crown that is geared 99.9% for the recruiters, or we call them search consultants, on our team. However, when we hire someone here that is not a search consultant, they still go through the same training. Why? Because it's important that they understand what we do, how we do it, what our steps are, that we all speak the same language, and we all understand the greater goal. So we hired a marketing associate a while back, and they went through the same onboarding training that our search consultants do. Two totally different jobs. Same for your folks that are coming through here. They need to understand everything that's happening. And if the bulk of your work happens in the field, I would recommend that everybody get in the field during their hiring process.
I agree. I love that. And yeah, that you're essentially doing a ride along, right? You guys aren't clearing drains, but it's a ride along because the recruiting role is your core service. Let's talk about culture. We mentioned this a little bit earlier, and the strong branding, employer branding, retention, culture can attract people. That can be the final decision maker. It's not always about the money, the pay. I feel like it's a word, even today, that people still look at it as like a fluffy, nice to have. And anybody who's been on LinkedIn for a few years, like, I feel like this was a trend at one point, people dumping on pizza parties. I personally love pizza in the office. I'll never bash an employer bringing pizza into the office, but I get it. Pizza in the office is not culture. Having a foosball table in the break room is not culture. Ron, what is culture? How do you know when you have a strong culture, and what impact does it make on attracting and retaining your best people?
So when I joined Hunter Crown almost a year and a half ago now, all I heard during my vetting of Hunter Crown and them vetting me was culture. That's all I heard. And it didn't hit me at the time, but as I've been able to go through the whole process and now I'm on the other side, I can start to see some things. I'll give you an example. The first interview that I had with the owner of Hunter Crown, gentleman by the name of Austin Meyerman, we talked for an hour straight, and not once was any of my knowledge of recruiting brought up. Not once. It was not talked about. It was, I want to know about you, your family, your likes, your dislikes, what you do on the weekends, finding commonalities between the two of us. And I thought, okay, we get done with that interview, and it's a little bit of a scratch my head. Hey, why didn't he ask me about my recruiting knowledge? I got 25 years of it. But okay, I get it. He schedules the next meeting. The next meeting is going to be a coffee. The two of us are going to sit down, and I'm all prepared. I've got all my notes about the things I've done. I've got my resume. I'm ready to go. We spent an hour drinking coffee, just chit-chatting, not talking business at all. Like, okay, I don't get it, but I keep hearing culture, culture, culture. Then I come on board. Culture is what the employees within the organization make it, and almost to the point of what they demand. And that's not in a negative way. One of the things that we do, like almost every organization on the planet, is we have a Monday morning meeting. And since I've been here, our Monday morning meeting has altered 3 or 4 times. I keep changing it up and what we're going to do and how we're going to discuss things and what business is going to happen. But as we go through those changes, there's one part of that morning meeting that never, ever changes. When it's your turn to speak, the first thing that you talk about is what happened on the weekend, what's going on in your personal life, so that we can all be part of your life and your journey. And that is part of building our culture here. And I promise you that folks like Emily and everyone else that's here on this team are not here because we are the premier recruiting firm in the water wastewater industry. I'll guarantee that's not it. I'll guarantee that they're not here because we are elite recruiters in the executive recruiting space. That's not it. They're here because we have this culture that it's very hard to describe, but so important that that's why folks are here. I'm going to step away from this because Emily's been part of this culture for 5 years. She's one of those people that I said has demanded that the culture be the way that it is. And once again, not in a negative way. This is what the employees want. Culture, it's more than a word. It has nothing to do with pizza. We don't even have an office here at Hunter Crown, so we couldn't have a pizza party if we wanted to. But
you get it delivered.
It's
Yeah, I'll
important.
accept deliveries depending on where it's
Yeah.
from.
Emily, I would love to hear your thoughts on the culture, especially in what we've built here at Hunter Crown, because it's very hard to duplicate. But once you get it right, it's a great environment.
Yeah, and it is so hard to describe, but one word that comes to mind that I think other people, other companies can try and duplicate is empathy, and just having empathy all around from leadership to colleagues. It's something that I think at the Hunter Crown is a core value, and companies that we partner with, I see that on their teams as well.
How do you when you talk to the hiring organizations, your clients?
Mm-hmm.
What are your conversations around culture? Like, how do those conversations go? I'm assuming you need to do an intake beyond the role, but you need to match cultural fit, not just the talent, not just the resume. How many of them get it? And do you have almost a process in place to help educate them to figure out what their culture is and to maybe adopt new best practices I'm just, because again, I think it's still a foreign concept for a lot of organizations. They're just all about the numbers and not about the people. But without the people, you don't have any numbers.
Yeah, when there's a lack of a good culture, or even just a culture that they can try to pinpoint, that they say this is one thing that's core to us, it's difficult. That's a difficult conversation to have. Sometimes it's someone in leadership, sometimes it's, a colleague. It usually takes a few conversations from my side. I think some other folks, Ron might be someone who's really good at picking it out right away in early conversations with clients, but I've found it over time in conversations with clients, when I've presented candidates, when I get candidate feedback, that there is something missing on the cultural side. So as far as coaching, it's not something that I've brought up concerns that's been relayed to me, or maybe that I've seen.
Sure.
As far as the coaching side, I haven't. Maybe Ron can speak to that a bit more.
I think it's so much about transparency. It's openness. It's empathy. The word that Emily used. If you're not willing to open yourself up to the person that you're communicating with, you can't expect them to open up coming back to you. One thing I will say about culture, especially since we're talking about hiring, your culture will change with every single hire. I'll say that again because I think that's really important. Your culture is going to change with every single hire. And I think that all too often people look at hiring as, I need these skills. I would tell you, if a skill can be taught, You need your culture more than you need the skill. Now, if a skill can't be taught, you have to have somebody that already knows how to do XYZ, then obviously that becomes more of an important aspect of the hiring. But if a skill can be taught, then make sure that your hire continues to add to your culture in a positive way, because culture will, it's plus or minus with every single new employee that you bring on board. And don't forget, culture shifts from day to day as well. People have good days, people have bad days, and that makes that culture go up and down the elevator, and that's okay. What you're looking for is, as a collective group, are we on the right path?
I wrote that down. Your culture is going to change with every single hire. And I started thinking about my own journey here in the various cast members we've had over the years. And you almost think about it in chapters. And I never looked at it that way. You're in the moment, right? But when you do look back, you could almost give a title to every chapter, and each chapter starts and ends with a person or people who were on the team, and when they joined, when they left, and the different kind of the way we look at sports teams and various eras of sports teams. Who was on the roster from this year to that year. Very interesting perspective. Yeah. We see it all the time with our technicians. You can have a technician who is incredibly skilled when it comes to the service piece, clearing, unclogging drains, repairing drains, replacing drains. Incredible. You have somebody who's really good at the skilled piece and is awesome at speaking to our customers and great at sales. But then you learn that they were a cancer to the culture. There's the things they did behind the scenes and how they impacted others around them. And it's your culture is what you tolerate. And I stole that from somebody. I don't remember who. I'm sure I saw it on LinkedIn, but it's true. Your culture is what you tolerate. And we have seen in many times addition by subtraction, just from a cultural standpoint, and the impact, the ripple effect that has on others. So really interesting. I had a conversation with an owner, in fact, just the other day, who is the same one I told you about earlier, who made a hire. The second technician was recommended by the guy who was already on his team. And he said, they're eating lunch together now. They hang out on the weekends. They're friends now. They want to be together. They motivate each other. There's friendly competition in the shop now. They motivate, they help each other. There's no friction. He's like, and it just, as the employer too, it kind of frees you up. You feel, because you can feel that tension too. Like when you have somebody on the team who doesn't fit, that tension is real. And another piece of advice, and I don't know if this is a cliche at this point, but I've heard it from many experienced business owners. And Ron, I have a feeling you're going to agree with this one, is hire fast, fire faster. It's like, as soon as that person is not the right fit for your organization, make the call. Don't wait. Things aren't going to get better. Let them go and start over. And again, if you're doing what you recommended earlier and you're being proactive and nurturing relationships, that starting over shouldn't be as burdensome. So I have one more question for you guys. Is there anything you wanted to add to that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to add just one thing to that. Hire quickly, fire faster, whatever the saying is. That goes for your top person as well. Your top person is one that sometimes you feel has this invisible armor around them. They're untouchable. But if they are causing problems, they have to be removed, and you will be a better organization. Now, are you going to hurt for a little while? Yeah, you are. I'm going to really, really date myself. Going back to my very first job in recruiting, I'm 2 weeks into the job, and the only thing that I really know is some of the first names of the people that I work with, and I know that one of these people is on the top of the leaderboard every single day, just absolutely crushing it. And I get brought into an all-hands meeting, and that person is terminated basically because they are a cancer within the organization. And I remember thinking, we're done. Like, this is the top producer in the company. Like, am I going to have a job tomorrow? And I
Yeah.
remember talking to my dad that night, and my dad telling me, this is a really, really good thing. Now, I'm probably 24 years old at the time. I can't see that it's a good thing. But all of those decisions that were made by my leadership back then, what my dad told me back then, they're all true. You can lose a top producer in whatever, if it's sales, if it's leadership, it doesn't matter what they are. If they're a top person, you can lose them if they're a cancer to your company, and the company still get better in the long run.
Well, what happened in that case specifically? They let the top producer go, and where did you improve? How did you improve as an organization?
Yeah, so we were a recruiting firm at the time, and we let that person go. We went and spoke with all of the clients that person worked with, signed new relationships, built new relationships, and a year later, we didn't even miss that desk because everybody had stepped up their game and taken on more responsibility, and we'd become a better organization. We actually did more in revenue the following year with one less person than we did the year that that person was there, where they were dominating probably 60 or 65% of the revenue that was generated. We lost that person, but we're able to get even better a year later by everybody feeling more comfortable to be themselves and not have to walk around eggshells.
Yeah.
You know, this was back in the day where we used to get our resumes every morning via fax, and this person that they terminated had the fax
What is a
machine.
fax?
A fax machine. You'll have to go look that one up. But it used to sit right next to their desk, and the fax machine would go off, and they would take all the resumes and stick them in their drawer so no one else could get them. And that was one of the ways that they were a cancer to the organization.
Wow.
And after that person left, all the resumes came in. We divvied them out to everybody, and lo and behold, the whole organization got better. I'm really old. I'm gonna go take a nap now while you two ask the next question.
You're too humble. You're too humble. You also were just hired on that year, so you made a difference too.
For the record, I knew what a fax machine was, know what a fax machine is. I worked at a pizza shop in high school, and we used to fax the daily lunch specials to all the local businesses. So I've used the fax machine, for the record. I just like to tease you, Ron. If you guys have time for one quick question.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a personal experience that came up. We recently filled a role internally, and we put the job description out because I can't have a podcast without talking about AI, at least for one question. And a part of me appreciates the effort, although I don't know if it's effort now, as this is kind of the lazy path forward. It was so obvious that people were just taking the job description and using ChatGPT to insert the keywords and the desired skills and experience, not only into their resume, but their cover letter as well. And it was really hard to sift through what was genuine, right? I know people are trying to beat all of the different recruiting systems that are in place that scan resumes for keywords. I mean, we do everything by hand. So it was disappointing, because the first one I'm like, wow, this person's perfect. And I'm reading it more, and I'm thinking, this person's too perfect, and it's like, do I give them a shot? Like, hey, it's a smart approach, I think. Are you seeing that? And what is, like, you live in this world every day. Like, how do you handle that? How do you view that approach to, a candidate using AI?
It's so tricky. And yeah, you have to, there's a part of you that realizes they're trying to get ahead of these systems where they haven't had a fair chance, where their resumes have been tossed to the side because of that scanning, those things that you mentioned. It is really tricky. But a short phone conversation, I think that's it takes time, but that's really the only way to truly beat it. See if these people have the skills, have your questions ready that you want to ask. You see they have something in their resume, ask them about it. Can they elaborate or not? You're going to know really quickly if their experience is real or not.
I appreciate that. Yeah, that's exactly what we did. Live conversations confirmed, and either way, you confirmed what I thought, whether they were a good fit or they were just blowing smoke. And lots of smoke in 2026, thanks to AI.
I was going to ask you, did you have some that just had no idea what they had even put in their resumes?
They knew what was in the resume. They tried their best to answer the
Yeah.
questions. It just the responses often lacked depth. It lacked the depth that somebody who had the experience that they put on the resume or on the cover letter would have. You'd be able to, if you're sharp enough to put that information, those phrases, those metrics on paper, you should be able to communicate it, without reading from a script. So it's pretty
Mhm.
obvious right away when somebody has it or they don't.
Yeah. And the flip side to this too is there are so many great candidates that don't have an all-star resume. And you get them on the phone and you're like, this person is phenomenal. So I love that your team did take the time to connect with people.
It's the only way. You can't believe or trust anything that you
Yeah.
see or read anymore. You have to talk to them. So go ahead, Ron.
Listen, AI is the greatest invention that we've seen in a long, long time. You might have to go back to the iPhone as the next greatest invention, bringing us here. AI has a time and a place for everything, and there's no bigger AI user than me. I use it every single day. I have multiple AI platforms that I utilize. We always hear, will AI replace dot, 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 whatever it might be. In our world, in your world, Patrick, there is nothing after the dot, dot, dot because of what Emily just said. AI can make us faster, can make our candidates get their resume to the top faster, can put eyeballs on things that may not have had the eyeballs on them. But at the end of the day, we are in a relationship based business. And therefore, AI will replace dot, 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 nothing. And what you do in Zoom Drain, what we do at Hunter Crown, because it's relationship based and we need to have those conversations. And that's what's going to elevate a person to the top is that conversation. And that's what's so important. And we'll bring this all the way back full circle. It's why we have to be proactive recruiters in everything that we do today. If we just wait, you're right, Patrick, you're going to grab that first resume and go, this person's perfect.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They're not. And they weren't before AI was there, and they won't be after AI is gone. The relationship and what you build with that person is going to dictate how they fit into your culture. Do they have the skills that you need? Can you teach those skills? Those are all things that have to happen through a conversation.
Ron Dermady dropping the mic once again, just like you've done so many times over the years. Ron, it was great to reconnect with you. Thank you for your time. And Emily, thank you so much. A new contact for me, but really it's been a pleasure getting to know you. Appreciate your insight and for sharing it with our network at Zoom Drain and beyond, for the greater franchising and home service world. I appreciate it. I could talk about this all day. I talked about it for 7 years with Ron. So again, I got to have you back on soon. I'm sure there'll be new trends and new things we want to cover. Call us anytime. You got a friend in Zoom Drain. I appreciate it, Ron. Emily, thank you.